right, so having the perfect skincare routine is actually pretty simple. All you need is a few things. Number 1, use a moisturizer. Number 2, use some kind of sunscreen every day. Number 3, use some kind of
Oof, I don't think this is gonna go well.
retinoid every evening. Feel free to wash your face with a cleanser if you really want.
Humans have been using soap for at least 5,000 years. You should use a mild liquid pH balanced cleanser. Unless your skin is super painful and raw, in which case take some time to just let it recover.
You can do 2-in-1 and you can get this sunscreen moisturizer combination.
That sounds like something that's heavily processed and probably not great for you, but let's see where he goes with this.
Need to know to get a really solid skincare routine going. But okay, let's go a little bit deeper into the details. Like, why should we have a skincare routine in the first place? And then what is the scientific evidence that these are the sorts of products that we should actually care about? Well, there's 2 main reasons. Number 1, for healthy skin, and number 2, for pretty skin.
100% agree.
To find the perfect evidence-based productive skincare routine that helps me maximize my skincare results with minimum effort, then I'm winning in terms of health and also in terms of looks. The problem is that there are millions of skincare products out there, like avocado face masks and charcoal cleansers and LED therapy and snail slime face cream.
Slather on the slime.
Now, I trained as a doctor, but I'm not a skincare specialist, so I've enlisted the help of my friend and New York-trained dermatologist, Dr. Osama Sayed, to find out exactly what we should actually be.
Okay, that's legit. Let's see what he has to say.
And apparently, to get like 90% of the results, all we have to do is follow 3 or 4 simple rules and we'll do absolutely fine. So why should we actually use a moisturizer? Well, the most important thing that the skin does is that it acts as a barrier to the outside world, and it keeps irritants and allergens outside of our body and locks in moisture. If our skin loses moisture and gets dry and cracked, that barrier gets weakened, which means inflamed, red, itchy skin, and you might even get infections.
Yeah, he's totally right about that. They're nailing it so far.
Which is like the little paste in between it, made up of different types of fats and proteins. Now, what these moisturizers do, especially the ones that are evidence-based, is they will replenish that layer of paste to help keep that barrier intact so you don't lose moisture, therefore you don't have inflammation.
Excellently explained, as one would expect from a dermatologist.
To having a hot shower, because that dries out your skin and strips away your natural protective layer of oils.
True, it's good to wash your face with cool or lukewarm water for the reasons that he's saying.
So we want to find a good moisturizer that rehydrates that skin, replaces our natural fats and proteins, and helps keep the skin barrier intact.
Oh, they might actually say something legit here. Let's see.
Well, Osama's main recommendations for moisturizer are any standard product from Eucerin, CeraVe, or La Roche-Posay, mainly because those are huge companies that have the budgets to do lots and lots of research and quality control on their products.
Damn. Okay, they didn't nail it. One, let's dial in on that last statement. These are huge companies that have the budget to do the research. The problem with that is that corporate-funded studies, whether in skincare or nutrition, almost always find results that align with the company's bottom line. As in, the products that they're selling is actually really good for you. Funnily enough, they missed the best moisturizer, purified animal fats. It can be a moisturizing balm made of mutton fat, beef tallow, whatever. Firstly, the research supports what I'm saying, and the reason why it works so well is exactly what they said before. You want a moisturizer that contains the fats and cholesterol that help keep your skin barrier healthy. Plus, and there's a huge gap in their video, tallow contains fats that feed the skin microbiome. You know how they mentioned that the basic function of skin is a barrier? A huge part of that is not only the brick and mortar that they talk about, but also the skin microbiome. That is this incredible, thriving community of bacteria, fungi, viruses, and other microorganisms that live on the skin surface. Your skin is naturally acidic, and your microbiome eats fats and produces short-chain fatty acids that make your skin acidic. And this protective layer of acidity is called the acid mantle. So my advice is to skip all the products that they recommended and moisturize yourself the same way humans have been doing for thousands of years successfully.
Because anything beyond that point is you're paying for the fluff. The active ingredient and getting something effective can always be done for less than $30.
So what products do I use? Well, my main dedicated moisturizer is from CeraVe.
Okay, that's also debatable, but the reality is that these major skincare corporations can produce their products at a scale that allows them to keep them pretty cheap. The only problem is that recent research from October 2024 has shown that nearly every cosmetic product we use today negatively impacts our skin microbiome, which causes, as they call it, transepidermal water loss, which is one of the things that makes your skin look old.
And I use CeraVe PM for moisturizing in the evening. It's very nice, it's very chill, it's available absolutely everywhere. It's Altruist Dermatologist Face Fluid SPF 50 Moisturizer, which is a moisturizer combined with sun cream.
Oof. Guys, please don't use either of these products. The CeraVe isn't the worst, but again, just use an animal fat-based moisturizer. But the sunscreen moisturizer combo there he lists has both chemical sunscreens that are terrible for you and the coral reefs. They literally get absorbed into your bloodstream. They are endocrine disruptors, as in they screw with your hormones, and they've even been found to accumulate in human brains. The other part of his recommendation there for the moisturizer sunscreen is nano titanium dioxide, which can also penetrate into your body as well and cause serious issues.
Rule number 2 of my productive skincare routine, which is to use a sunscreen every single day. Well, have a look at this case report from the New England Journal of Medicine, which is one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world. They looked at this truck driver who'd spent 28 years working with just the left side of his face being exposed to sunlight through the driver's side window. He's 69 years old in this photo, but the researchers said that the left side of his face, which has a bunch of wrinkles and damage from sun exposure, is apparently more like what you'd expect from an 86-year-old skin. That's what the sun does to your skin if you're regularly exposed to it without any protection. And that happens even if you never actually get sunburnt, but you just tanned. Technically, this is called photoaging or dermatoheliosis, and it happens because the sun is constantly bombarding us with UV radiation that mutates the DNA in our skin cells. And then in the long term, the more of this UV light that we're exposed to without protection, the more we get wrinkles and dark spots from that DNA mutation. And that DNA mutation can also lead to skin cancer, which is ultimately just unrepaired DNA mutations that snowball into cancer.
So what sunscreen does is it gives you an extra layer of that protection, so that not relying upon your own pigment, your own melanin, instead we're giving a physical barrier which will stop genetic mutations being created by the sun. And not only is that great for preventing skin cancer, also it prevents things like photoaging.
All right, so what sort of sun cream should you get? Well, there's loads of different options on the market, but there's mainly 3 things that you want to consider here. Well, the first thing you want to look for is that you want to find a sunscreen that's broad spectrum. Now, back in the day, people used to think that it was only UVB rays that actually damaged our skin, but now we know that it's UVA rays and also UVB rays, and broad spectrum sunscreen has protection for both sorts of rays and therefore gives you the maximum protection. Now, some sunscreen is physical and some is chemical.
I will note that is not at all what the most recent research indicates. Chemical sunscreens are not good for you. There's a lot of research about how they can affect organ function. They penetrate into your bloodstream at normal use, and these are studies in humans, and they accumulate in your brain and in your fat. They have all sorts of crazy effects, and from animal studies, we actually think that these chemical sunscreens can affect the next generation. So it's not just affecting you, but potentially your children or your grandchildren.
A variety you go for. What matters is that the SPF is high enough, and that is the second thing that we need to look out for. Now, the actual SPF number of the sunscreen refers to how much longer it would take for the sun to make your skin go red with the sunscreen on compared to without the sunscreen on. So if it would normally take 1 hour of direct sunlight on your cheeks to make them a little bit red, then in theory with SPF 15, it would take 15 hours if you got exposed to the exact same amount of sunlight. But it's not quite that simple, and there's extra issues that we do want to consider with SPF. Firstly, we don't need to actually burn for the sun to damage our skin and cause aging. We want to be protected well before our skin actually gets physically red. Secondly, the SPF is calculated based on a pretty thick amount of sun cream actually going on the skin.
I do say don't go below 30 typically. The number that you get on there, you never truly get that level of protection based on how normal people wear it, because it would rely upon like a pretty thick layer of sunscreen like caked on there. Most of us will be getting around like say 60% of that true SPF protection factor. So if you use a 50, you'll actually get a 30. If you use a 30, you'll get a 15 kind of thing.
And finally, in reality, we sweat and smudge our faces all the time, which takes away a lot of our sun cream protection during the day. So in an ideal world, we actually want to top up our sunscreen every few hours. I don't personally bother with this, but what I do try and do is I use a high SPF like SPF 50, because chances are even with SPF 50, I'm only really likely to get SPF 30 or 20 or 15 levels of protection. Now, the final thing to think about with sun cream is comfort. And the issue with the max SPF sunscreens is that they can be uncomfortable.
They are right that sunscreen does decrease UV-induced DNA damage that can make your skin prematurely wrinkly. The major thing they are missing is that chemical and nanoparticle sunscreens are not good for you, nor can you go swimming with them because they absolutely destroy marine life and coral reefs. You should definitely use sunscreen every day like they recommend, but you need to use a non-nano zinc sunscreen or potentially a non-nano titanium oxide sunscreen. The nanoparticle sunscreens, they don't leave as much of a white cast, but they can actually penetrate into your skin and bloodstream and impact your body. You need to use a non-nano zinc sunscreen, as that won't get into your bloodstream and will give you all the benefits without any of the harmful side effects.
Right, so this one is a little bit more rogue. So we've all probably heard of moisturizers and sunscreen, but most people have not heard of retinoids. And in fact, fact, I hadn't really heard of retinoids as being good for normal people's skin, even though I went to med school. I'd only really heard of retinoids being a treatment for acne, and that's exactly what they started out as. Researchers found that the active ingredient, retinol, actually had a bunch of anti-aging effects as well.
Okay, I have a feeling I know where this is going, but let's let them explain.
When it comes to retinoids, they genuinely lay a credible scientific case for helping reduce pigment unevenness, helping to minimize wrinkles, help to minimize acne breakouts, and they do all of these things to a level where it's noticed in clinical trial data and on biopsy samples from the skin. Something that does all of those things with minimal to no downside.
Ah yes, so retinoids like retinol and tretinoin, are they really a miracle ingredient for anti-aging and acne? Here's the thing. The reality is way more complicated than they are conveying. And the downsides, they're kind of swept under the rug. Retinoids work by speeding up cell turnover, which sounds great, but it also thins your skin's protective barrier in the short term. That's why so many people deal with irritation, dryness, and sensitivity when they start using them. And it's not just about the surface level stuff. This disruption can lead to chronic inflammation. Now, most people's skin adapts to the barrier thinning and rebounds with long-term use, but that's only the start of the issue. Retinoids always mess with your skin's microbiome. Yes, that is the good bacteria that keeps your skin healthy. And they make your skin more vulnerable to UV damage because they reduce melanin, which is your skin's natural sunscreen. Here's the kicker, and I bet you they don't actually even know about this because he did not actually have an awareness of the anti-aging benefits of retinoids. So there is evidence that retinoids can mess with your hormones, which is not ideal. For the guys out there who are focused on optimizing testosterone and androgen receptor sensitivity, this is especially important because retinoids, particularly with long-term use that can get into the bloodstream, can interfere with androgen signaling, potentially throwing a wrench in your hormonal balance. So it is true that retinoids can smooth out wrinkles and even out pigmentation, but it comes at the hidden cost of a compromised skin barrier, a disrupted microbiome, and potentially long-term risks. Now, you can look at all these citations to see where I'm pulling this information from. Okay, now that we savagely debunked the, miracle ingredient, let's see what else he has to say.
And remember, the general recommendation for retinoids is to start with a tiny pea-sized amount every other night and then work your way up to once a night using lots of moisturizer at the same time, and this helps keep your skin from drying out.
So when it comes to cleansers, it's basically water is good at removing debris, but a cleanser is supposed to kind of help to remove some of the oils that might stay on your skin that are hard to remove with just water.
So bro's gaming the algorithm because he starts out with there's just 3 things you need, and now he's like, okay, rule number 4.
Anecdotally for me, I find that on days where I'm consistently using my cleanser morning and evening, those weeks I tend to get a lot less breakouts of like random shit on my face. Like I tend to get kind of troubled areas around the nose and stuff. And generally I find that if I've forgotten to cleanse, then I'm more prone to those kind of things. So n equals 1, but yeah. This is rule number 4, and it's a little bit optional.
I didn't want to just talk off the cuff, so I looked at the full ingredient list for this cleanser that he's recommending. And here's why I would not use this, and I'll tell you what I think you should do instead. So this cleanser is a cream-based formula, and while it's packed with some great stuff like ceramides and hyaluronic acid, there are a few reasons it might not be the best choice for most people. First off, it's got ingredients like cetyl alcohol and stearyl alcohol and cetyl alcohol. These are fatty alcohols that act as thickeners and emollients. They're not inherently bad, but they can leave a residue on your skin, and if you're acne prone, that residue might clog your pores. Then there's glyceryl stearate and PEG-40 stearate, which are emulsifiers that can also be pore clogging if they're not rinsed off thoroughly. Another issue? The pH. This cleanser uses potassium phosphate and dipotassium phosphate to adjust its pH, but it's likely on the higher side, closer to 7 or above. Your skin's natural pH is slightly acidic, around 4.5 to 5.5, and using a high pH cleanser can mess with your acid mantle, leading to dryness, irritation, and a compromised skin barrier. Oh, and it's got behentrimonium methosulfate, a conditioning agent you'd usually find in hair conditioners, and phenoxyethanol, a preservative that can irritate sensitive skin. So what's the alternative? Use a mild pH balanced liquid cleanser. That's a much better option for most people. It's gentle on your skin barrier, rinses off cleanly without leaving a residue, and it works for all skin types, whether you're oily, dry, or sensitive. Look for ingredients like glycerin, hyaluronic acid, and ceramides to hydrate and support your skin barrier, and mild surfactants like cocoa glucoside or decyl glucoside that cleanse without stripping your skin. And these mild skin cleansers are pH balanced, so they're less likely to disrupt your skin's microbiome. Bottom line, a mild pH balanced liquid cleanser is a safer, more effective choice for keeping your skin healthy and happy. And here's the sources for where I'm getting that information from. All right, as promised, if you want to know what you should actually do, watch my video about the only 3 products you need for perfect skin. I'm Sam Bachvarov, and I'm absolutely obsessed with the science of how to get more out of life. Subscribe for more health deep dives, and I'll see you in the next one.